Set the day down beside you like a heavy bag you do not need to carry inside. Let the ground hold it for now. Let your breath arrive without being called. You are safe to slow. This is a story about meeting struggle the way a mountain meets weather. The mountain does not chase the storm. It stands, listens, and lets passing clouds explain themselves. Place one hand on your belly and one on your heart. Feel the rhythm that works day and night without applause. Tonight we will learn to work with it, not against it. Across this journey we will walk through suffering and its causes, and the paths that loosen its knot. We will let compassion make room for what hurts to speak plainly. Inhale as if smelling rain. Exhale as if warming a window. Let this tide set the pace. Struggle becomes survivable when breath keeps company with truth. Know that you do not have to be perfect to begin. You only have to be willing to see clearly. Seeing clearly is the first kindness you can offer yourself. Buddhist wisdom calls the first noble truth dukkha, the unsatisfactoriness that visits every life. We bow to it not to surrender, but to stop wasting strength pretending it is not here. The second truth says causes exist. Clinging, aversion, and confusion tighten the rope. We will notice where we pull hardest and practice letting the rope rest in open hands. The third truth offers hope. If causes can be understood, their effects can soften. Even deep hurt changes costume. No storm keeps its shape forever. The fourth truth is a path with ordinary steps. Wise view, intention, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, and concentration. Each step is a way of walking in daylight. Notice three simple facts: the support beneath you, the movement of breath, the temperature touching your skin. These anchors remind the nervous system that this moment is enough. When the mind races to fix everything at once, bow to it once and let it walk beside you. When the body grips, bow twice and offer it softer instructions. Karma is habit ripening. We have practiced certain reactions for years. Tonight we will plant new habits. Pause before push, kindness before judgment, clarity before action. Impermanence is not an enemy. It is the promise that pain can change and that ease can be tended. We will learn to keep company with both without grasping at either. If a strict voice arrives, give it a useful job. Ask for measurements, not blame. Invite it to guard your rest and to report back kindly in the morning. Balance is not a frozen pose. It is a living conversation between steadiness and change. Adjust your posture by a hair until breath flows like a river with room. Choose one intention for tonight that is small enough to keep. Fewer jaw clenches, softer shoulders, speaking to yourself as you would to a dear friend. Let your to-do list wait outside the door like a flock of birds. You do not need to chase them. Stand still and let the right ones land later in the right order. Place attention in the soles of your feet or the warmth of your hands. The body's simple news is trustworthy. Let its honest signals set the speed of your care. Remember, doing less is not indifference. It is caring with accuracy. You will learn where effort belongs and where surrender accomplishes more than struggle. If tears come, let them sign a permission slip for relief. If silence comes, let it teach. Either way, you are allowed to heal without drama. Throughout this story, one life will practice this path step by step. You will walk beside it, learning to release what harms and strengthen what helps. For now, let the breath be your steady companion. With every exhale, set down one measure of hurry. With every inhale, receive one measure of ease. When you are ready, bow once to the room, once to your breath, and once to the day that brought you here. We begin at a human speed that your body can trust. Aya's mornings began with a list that grew teeth. By the second coffee, her chest felt like a small room with no windows. She kept smiling at co-workers while something inside braced for weather. Her father used to say, "Be strong." Aya translated it as, "Be silent." She learned to hold her breath through storms and then wondered why the sky inside her never cleared. One bus stop held a view of a hill with a bell at the top. A chalkboard by the path read, "Sit at 7, all welcome." She read it for weeks while promising herself another day. On a Tuesday, when the list ate lunch, Aya climbed the hill. The bell rope felt like a thread to a calmer country. She pulled gently, and the sound made more room than her apartment. A woman in gray bowed and smiled. She said, "I am Lynn. We meet struggle by learning its language. Will you sit?" Aya nodded because the word felt like a small raft. The room smelled like cedar and old rain. Lynn rang once and the group bowed. Lynn said, "Breathe as if greeting a friend who stayed when others left. Let the breath set the pace." Aya closed her eyes and met noise. Every task shouted its name. The shoulder clenched like a fist. The jaw wrote a long letter. She wanted to run. Lynn's voice returned like a hand on water. "Name what you notice," Lynn said, not to judge, to include. Aya whispered, "Tightness, heat, planning, fear." The words arrived like birds that stopped flying because someone finally looked up. Lynn taught a shape. Breathe, locate, label, and listen. Breathe to steady. Locate the ache. Label it kindly. Listen for a request small enough to grant today. Aya tried. Breath steady. Ache in chest. Label small room. Listen. Please stand by the window and open it a crack. The chest softened by a shade, as if a curtain moved. After the sit, Aya asked, "What if naming makes it worse?" Lynn said, "Denial grows mold. Seeing clearly lets air in. The body believes gentleness faster than threats." On the walk down the hill, Aya noticed the city's noise had a rhythm: sirens, traffic, wind, footsteps. She matched her steps to breath and discovered the ground kept time without a clock. At work, the list still tried to bite. Aya set a timer for 5 breaths before each change of task. It felt small and awkward. It also kept panic from turning hallway lights red. Her manager asked for an extra report. Old Aya would have said yes before listening to the body. New Aya said, "I can do it by noon without sacrificing accuracy." He blinked, then said, "Good." That night she sat again, then spoke about the first noble truth. Dukkha visits all lives. We vow not to praise suffering, but to stop pretending we are immune. Honesty is medicine. Aya bowed to the ache instead of bargaining with it. Tears came and did not demand a flood. They signed a permission slip that let the breath walk farther without armor. Lin said the second truth shows causes. Clinging and aversion tightened the rope. Aya saw how she grabbed at approval and ran from shame. Oath grips made the knot tighter. Practice for this week, Lin said. When you notice the grip, pause and soften one muscle. A jaw unclenched is a sermon the body understands. Right effort begins at the mouth. In bed, Aya placed one hand on belly and one on heart. She said, "Thank you for telling the truth early." The body answered with a quiet yes she could feel, but not hear. Morning brought a crisis at work. A client changed scope with no buffer. The old script reached for panic. Aya opened the window inside instead and asked, "What reduces harm right now?" The answer fit on one line: clarify the change. Define the first step. Protect lunch. She wrote to the client with steady words. She ate the soup she had packed instead of paying fear rent. Lin taught about karma as habit ripening, not punishment, patterns. If we always sprint, the nervous system learns the world is on fire. We teach it again with smaller, kinder steps. A coworker whispered, "I can never catch up." Aya said, "Try writing the list and circling 3. The coworker looked skeptical, then cried quietly over a calendar that felt less like a trap. In the break room, Aya noticed her hands reached for her phone like it was oxygen. She set it face down and counted 8 breaths. Oxygen arrived on schedule without the scroll. That evening, Lin spoke about impermanence. Even heavy feelings change costume. Watch how anger becomes heat, then tightness, then wet eyes, then a yawn. You do not have to stop the river. Aya remembered holding grief like a stone. She had believed strength meant lifting forever. She asked the stone to teach instead of bruise. It showed her how to set it down between breaths. On Thursday, a mistake surfaced with her name on it. Old Aya would have hidden under smart sentences. New Aya wrote a clean correction and one line of thanks for patience. The sky did not fall. Walking home, a storm pinned rain to glass like a note. Aya stood under a store awning and practiced the pause. People hurried by with their weather. She let the storm have the sky. At dinner, she called her mother. They often walked a thin bridge over old arguments. Aya listened more and repaired after one stumble with, "I am learning to hear you without armor." Her mother grew quiet and said, "Then I will try to put down mine." They laughed softly. The call ended without the usual ache in Aya's throat. Compassion had good posture that night. Friday's meeting began with voices raised like flags. Aya felt the first spark in her chest. She breathed and labeled heat, guard, story. She asked for 2 minutes to list facts on the whiteboard. The room obeyed the chalk. Competing stories cooled in the presence of shared numbers. Aya wondered how many fires had been fed by the lack of a board and a breath. Lynn ended the week with a story. A pot cracks and someone fills the seam with gold. It does not hide the break. It honors the joining. Our practice is gold repair. We walk shining and honest. Aya held her shoulder and whispered, "Thank you for carrying me while I learned too slowly. Rest. We will pace with breath." The shoulder decided not to argue. Saturday arrived with a quiet city. Aya cleaned the kitchen as if returning it to a friend. She put a warm cloth on the shoulder and watched steam bloom like patience on a winter window. She wrote a vow in plain words. "I will not abandon my body for praise. I will not abandon other bodies for my comfort. I will keep the middle pace more often than not." Later, she carried tea to the hill and sat early. Birds established their meeting and then fell silent. Lynn said, "Today we will practice non-attachment as craftsmanship. Cut where the work can breathe." Aya looked at her week and cut one beloved habit, the apology tour after small mistakes. She kept the correction and dropped the theater. She felt rich in minutes and lighter in the chest. A stranger asked after sit, "Does it really get easier?" Lynn smiled. The body trusts consistency. Fear does not retire, but it takes longer vacations when breath is in charge. On the bus, a child dropped a snack and wailed as if a country had fallen. Aya passed a napkin to the parent and felt her chest agree to relax. Helping often speaks directly to the knot. At home, she wrote 3 phrases on a card. Feel fully. Learn kindly. Re-enter gently. She taped it near the sink where her hands could memorize the shapes of the words. Sunday brought a visit with friends. One was newly divorced. Aya listened without fixing, then asked, "What would reduce harm today?" The friend said, "A walk." They walked until the city exhaled. That night Aya dreamt of a room with many windows. Each looked into a season that did not argue with the next. She woke with the sense that being alive was not a competition. Monday tested the new practice. The client canceled the meeting and asked for a summary in an hour. Aya wrote a 1-page river. context, current, next stones. It arrived on time and clean. Her manager asked how she kept calm. Aya said, "I practice not picking up what is not mine, and I breathe before picking up what is." He nodded as if she had spoken a trade secret. Lynn taught about wise speech. Before speaking, ask, is it true? Is it kind? Is it timely? Is it necessary? 4 small doors reduce later repairs. Aya took the doors to a hard call. 2 stayed closed and 2 opened. The conversation was shorter and left less smoke in the room. She wrote smaller fires in her notebook alongside a smile. Midweek the body asked to rest. Aya did not argue. She moved a meeting and slept for 20 minutes. The afternoon's work took half the usual time with a clearer mind and kinder posture. In the mirror, she touched a place that used to carry a permanent brace. Not healed, she thought, honored and included. The difference felt like a road she could finally walk. Lynn introduced walking meditation. Place attention in the soles. Let the world move without you pushing it. Stop sometimes and notice the echo of motion inside stillness. Aya paced the hallway at work with a binder in her hand, so she looked like she belonged. She actually counted steps and breaths. The hallway learned her speed and stopped nudging. A coworker asked, "Are you less ambitious now?" Aya said, "I am ambitious for accuracy and peace. I am less interested in trophies that require losing my body to win them." In the afternoon, she met a deadline she had once called impossible. It arrived without heroics, the way a tide arrives, expected, steady, not offended by shorelines. That evening, Lynn answered a question about forgiveness. He said, "Forgiveness is not amnesia. It is the decision to stop paying interest on a debt that no longer buys food." Aya wrote a letter she would not send. "Thank you for teaching me where my limits were. I am spending my energy differently now." She folded the letter and fed it to the recycling bin. On the train home, a man argued loudly on the phone. The car held its breath. Aya practiced releasing what was not hers. The breath protected her ears from inventing extra storms. She got off one stop early and walked the rest. The city's noise sounded less like verdicts and more like weather. She could meet weather without inventing responsibilities. Friday returned with another tangle of requests. Aya drew 3 small boxes. Define, do, drop. She wrote 1 line in each. The work moved through like a traveler with the right documents. A leader praised her calm and asked for tips. Aya said, "Breathe, locate, label, listen, and then keep practices so simple you will do them on a crowded bus." At week's end, Lynn asked each person to name 1 repair. Aya said, "I am setting down the need to be the storm's translator. I will be the window that opens." The group bowed. Lynn rang the bell once. Aya felt the sound enter the small room in her chest and push the walls politely apart. The room grew windows. She walked down the hill as the city turned its lights on one by one. She placed a hand on the shoulder that had learned a softer language. It answered by not arguing. At her door, Aya whispered a new sentence. I will work with the day that exists. She hung the list on a hook like a coat and followed the breath into a quiet kitchen. Before sleep, she wrote, struggle met with breath becomes conversation, not trial. She smiled at the ordinary heroism of washing a cup and placing it on a sturdy shelf. She turned off the light. The sky continued not needing help. The house breathed. The night did not require supervision. Aya's body believed her a little more. A week later, Aya noticed the chest room had more windows. The list still tried to roar, but breath had learned where the handle was. Lin opened the evening sit with a bow. He said, suffering is universal, but isolation is optional. We practice together to stop suffering from becoming loneliness. They scanned the body slowly. Aya found a knot behind the heart. She labeled it guard. It had worked hard for years and did not know the shift had ended. Lin invited compassion for the one who clenches. Place a hand where effort gathers and say, thank you for trying to keep me safe. Rest now while I learn a softer way. Aya practiced and felt heat change to warmth. The guard sat down on a bench inside and stopped checking the door every minute. At work, a teammate missed a deadline and panic fog filled the room. Old Aya would have tightened the jaw and raced. New Aya wrote, let's name 3 facts and 1 next step. The fog thinned in the presence of simple truth. Facts love daylight. Panic prefers corners. The next step fit on one line, and the room breathed together. Her mother texted, we need to talk about your father. Old fear rose like a siren. Aya breathed and called with a pace that would not spill. Her father sounded tired. He said the doctor wanted more tests. He also said he was fine, which was how he asked not to scare anyone. Aya heard the child and the parent in one voice. After the call, Aya walked to the hill. Lin listened without fixing. He said, compassion is noticing pain with the wish to reduce it, starting with the pain in you that hears the news. They sat in silence that did not accuse. Aya realized she often tried to win at caregiving by losing herself. The vow to keep company with her own body felt like a seatbelt. Lin taught wise intention. May my actions reduce harm. May my words be true and kind. May I remember I cannot breathe for others, but I can breathe near them. That night, Aya slept lightly. At dawn, she wrote 3 small promises. Eat before panic. Ask for the real need. Offer help that fits the day we are in. At the hospital, corridors hummed with mixed weather. Aya greeted her father with a hand on his arm and her own feet on the floor. She chose presence over performance. Paperwork multiplied like ivy. She paused, breathed, and asked the nurse for the sequence. The nurse smiled at the question and drew a clear map on the back of a form. While waiting, Aya noticed families moving in two speeds, sprint or sway. She practiced sway and discovered it arrived without apology when breath led. Her father said, "You have always been strong." Aya replied, "I am learning that strength includes asking for help." He nodded, relieved to hear a sentence that made space. A technician apologized for delay. Aya said, "Thank you for telling us." One calm minute felt like a bridge built between strangers in a storm. Back home, Aya wanted to collapse into scrolling. She placed the phone face down and counted 8 breaths. The need to numb softened into the need to eat and rest. That evening, Lynn spoke about the second arrow. Pain is the first arrow. Our reaction often shoots the second. Practice is learning to stop archery after the first. Aya saw her habit of firing extra arrows at herself and others. She wrote a small sign on her desk. No second arrows during business hours. In a meeting, a comment stung. Warmth rose in the face. The second arrow wanted its turn. Aya breathed, softened the jaw, and asked a clarifying question instead. The room followed the question rather than the sting. The meeting ended early with fewer invisible bruises. Lynn introduced Tonglen, the breath of giving and receiving. Breathe in the shared heaviness as a cloud. Breathe out steadiness and care. Do not keep anything you cannot carry. Aya tried Tonglen on the train. She breathed in the car's edge and breathed out a quiet that did not erase anything. It made room. People shifted as if the air had learned manners. The next day, the client changed plans again. Aya drew 3 boxes: define, do, drop. She moved with a pace that did not invent thunder. The work crossed the river on stepping stones. At lunch, she walked outside with soup and a bench. A man nearby cried quietly. Aya did not perform rescue. She practiced presence and offered a napkin. He nodded, relieved to be seen. Her mother texted a worry at midnight. Aya answered in the morning with clarity and warmth. Boundaries that honor both bodies are a form of compassion, too. Lynn's talk that week was on right speech. Is it true, kind, timely, necessary? 4 doors. Aya wrote the doors on a card and placed it near her keyboard. A coworker arrived with anger disguised as urgent feedback. Aya opened the doors one by one. Only 2 were unlocked. She chose those and declined the rest without heat. That afternoon, the hospital scheduled a procedure. Fear arrived in a costume that looked like internet research. Aya closed the window and called the nurse with 2 clean questions. The answers reduced uncertainty from a storm to weather. The body stood down. The mind stopped drafting disaster reports. At home, Aya placed a warm cloth on her shoulder and thanked it for learning new work rules. She promised to notice sooner and to rest before collapse. Lynn taught a small ritual for days like this. Place your palm where it hurts and say, "I am not an enemy to myself." Practice until the body believes you. Aya practiced and felt the sentence land. The chest room grew another window. The guard straightened the bench and watered a plant. On Friday, a leader asked for weekend work. Old Aya feared being forgotten. New Aya offered a Monday plan with clear benefits. The leader agreed without punishment. The sky did not fall. She left the office at a human hour and carried bread and soup to her parents. They ate slowly. Her father told a story from childhood that did not try to teach. It simply connected. On the walk home, Aya realized struggle had not left. The relationship had changed. She was not bracing against life. She was walking beside it and listening. Saturday's sit focused on resilience. Lynn said resilience is not bouncing back to how you were. It is growing around what happened without calling yourself broken. Aya remembered the crack-filled pot story. Repair does not hide the line. It honors the joining. She felt the week's seams shining without asking for applause. She cleaned the apartment with attention instead of urgency. The floor responded by feeling like a place she could live rather than a test she might fail. On Sunday, her father texted a photo of tea by a window. He wrote, practicing sway. Aya laughed and sent a bow emoji that looked like a small lantern on a sill. Monday brought a stack of requests and a thin supply of hours. Aya circled 3 that would actually change today. She squared 1 that would feed someone else's ease. The 4th item asked to be deleted. She let it go without building a case. Detachment trimmed the branches that did not bear fruit. Midday, a teammate snapped under pressure. Aya felt the first spark again. She breathed and offered a 2-minute reset. They returned with smaller voices and better aim. Lynn closed the week with a sentence that felt like a bridge. Compassion is not a mood, it is a policy. Apply it to yourself first, then let it spill without exhausting the cup. Aya wrote the policy where panic used to live. She read it before meetings and calls and hospital doors. The body learned the new law and enforced it gently. At dusk, she walked by the river and let wind edit her thoughts. The heavy ones lost their extra words. The useful ones stayed and spoke in complete sentences. A message arrived from the nurse. The procedure had gone well. Relief moved through like rain that knows where to fall. Aya let the body feel it without demanding a parade. She stood still and whispered, "Thank you, breath, for staying. Thank you, body, for telling the truth early. Thank you, fear, for trying to help and for learning new jobs." That night she slept without second arrows. The sky continued not needing help. The house breathed. The window stayed open. In the morning, she placed a hand on her heart. She said, "I will meet struggle as a companion, not a courtroom. I will practice the steps that keep us walking together." She bowed to the tools and the day. She began with one helpful thing and then rested for a breath. The list waited its turn like birds on a rail. Aya walked to the hill for the evening sit. The bell rang once. The sound made more room than the week had taken. She took her seat and trusted the pace that had carried her here. Autumn thinned into early dark. Aya kept the vow near the sink. Feel fully, learn kindly, re-enter gently. The words worked like small lighthouses at ordinary corners. At work, a restructure arrived without etiquette. Teams were folded and names shifted columns. Rumors ran faster than facts. The body listened for a stampede. Lynn opened the evening sit with a story about storms. He said the mountain does not argue with wind. It lowers its branches and keeps its roots honest. Aya felt fear in the ribs and called it by name. Lynn said, "Name the visitor," and offered tea. Panic drinks faster when we chase it. The next day, a meeting floated the phrase resource optimization. It meant fewer hands and more promises. Aya felt the second arrow reach for a bow. She breathed and asked 2 questions. What truly changes? What helps now? The room shifted from theater to sequence. A plan appeared that fit in 1 page. A colleague whispered that a role might vanish. Aya felt the pull to forecast disaster. She wrote 3 circles in 1 square and let tomorrow arrive on its own schedule. Her father texted a picture of soup and a thumbs up. Relief moved through like rain that knows where to land. She let gratitude finish its route without drafting more fear. Lynn taught a practice for unstable days. Keep 1 anchor in the body, 1 in the breath, and 1 in a helpful task. 3 points make a steady triangle. Aya chose sols on floor, breath in the nose, and a clean summary for the team. The triangle held while weather talked loudly. Leadership announced selections on Friday. The chest room tightened its windows. Aya put a warm cloth on the shoulder and whispered, "Thank you for warning me. We will pace with breath." She slept lightly and woke early. The hill was quiet. Lynn rang the bell once. He said, "Wise effort today means no second arrows. You will need your tools sharp." The email arrived mid-morning. Aya's role would continue, but without 2 supports. Grief for colleagues arrived before relief finished speaking. She wrote messages that honored people by name and by work. She did not try to fix their weather. She offered calls, references, and a steady presence. At lunch, she walked by the river. Leaves let go with no press release. Letting go looked like accuracy again. Hands knew when to open. Back at the office, a project demanded speed with no clarity. Aya drew the 3 boxes: define, do, drop. The meeting shrank to fit the work rather than a calendar's habit. Her manager asked for ideas without drama. Aya proposed a quiet hour to rebuild maps and toolkits. The team agreed, like shoulders lowering at the same time. Evenings sit focused on the third noble truth. Lynn said freedom is possible in the middle of change, not because life stops changing, but because grasping can learn to rest. Aya pictured grasping as a hand around a rope. She loosened one finger at a time. The breath widened the palm until the rope could lie across it without friction. She cried for a colleague who packed a desk into a box. The tears wrote a receipt, paid for with love. She did not add interest or apologize for water. At home, she mended a small tear in a sleeve. The motion calmed the mind more than reading headlines. Repair whispered, not everything needs to be replaced to begin again. Saturday's solitude became errands done in the right size. Wash, fold, mend, call. The day felt like a bench that fit her back rather than a race with invisible judges. On a bench, she met an older man studying birds. He said, "They waste no wing beats. They ride what is already moving." Aya wrote, "Ride what moves," in her notebook. Sunday, her mother asked to visit the temple. They walked up the hill slowly. Her mother bowed to the bell and to Lynn, as if greeting an old friend she had not met yet. Lynn spoke about right livelihood. Work should not require losing your body to keep your place. If it does, practice becomes both map and boundary. Her mother squeezed her hand. She whispered, "I worked through storms I did not need to. I am glad you are learning umbrellas and timing." Monday brought a surprise. Aya was asked to lead a smaller team for a trial period. The role carried both trust and heat. Old ambition woke with a shout. Aya bowed to it once and asked for partnership, not takeover. Ambition quieted into aim. The difference felt like a compass instead of a siren. She met the team and named a policy. We will reduce harm, write clearly, and protect tools. We will keep human speed. We will praise corrections more than perfection. A junior teammate asked if they were allowed to say no to meetings that existed only by habit. Aya smiled and said yes, and we will send one page that serves better than the room. That week they practiced the triangle. Feet, breath, helpful task. The room learned the rhythm. The calendar lost its taste for theater. A crisis arrived anyway. It brought a broken file and a promise with no oxygen. Aya felt heat in the cheeks. She walked 5 steps, paused, and asked for sequence. The sequence was simple and not dramatic. Restore the last clean version. Tell the client the truth without spice. Deliver the piece that actually changes the day. The client replied with gratitude instead of blame. Panic had asked for a parade. Honesty asked for a confirmation and got one. In the evening, Lin answered a question about control. He said, "Control is often grief in armor. Let grief speak, and control may set down the shield." Aya sat with the word grief until it changed temperature. She pictured the seasons of a single tree and realized she had been trying to keep 1 month forever. She wrote a letter she would not send to an earlier boss. "Thank you for teaching me speed. I am learning pace. I will bring results that last." On the train, a child laughed at their own reflection. Aya laughed too and forgot to appear composed. Relief arrived disguised as silliness and stayed for 2 stops. Midweek, a comment online misread her work and went slightly mean. Old Aya would have built a courtroom and called witnesses. New Aya wrote 1 line to clarify and left the door open. Silence returned. The courtroom dismissed itself for lack of oxygen. Aya felt how much time she had once donated to trials that never closed. At home, she placed 3 bowls on the table like last segment's memory: work, rest, service. She put 1 stone in each, balanced like visible altars. Her father sent a joke about the hospital coffee. She replied with a tea photo by a window. They were learning to talk about weather and what held during weather. Lin taught walking meditation in pairs. 1 walks. 1 watches. The watcher says, "I see shoulders soften. I see jaw ease." Aya learned she softens sooner when seen kindly. The team adopted the watcher role for tense hours. Someone would say, "I see us rushing." Another would say, "I see a clean path if we cut 2 lines." The room listened without defense. A vendor missed a delivery and blamed the clock. Aya named the facts and the next stone. The vendor thanked her for skipping the theater. The shipment found the river again. Thursday brought fatigue. Aya took 9 breaths with eyes closed. She felt the mind try the audit worth. She answered with a nap and sent the invoice to no one. After the nap, a page that had resisted for days arranged itself in 1 quiet hour. Rest had sharpened the tool more than force ever could. That night, Lin spoke of compassion fatigue. He said, "Compassion is not leakage. It is a chosen policy with valves, open and close with wisdom, so the cup refills." Aya wrote set valves on her card. When the cup felt light, she chose rest and simple food rather than 1 more heroic rescue. The rescues improved the next day. Friday arrived with the announcement that the trial lead would continue. The team brought bread and fruit instead of noise. Celebration felt like a steady table. Aya thanked them and named the next gentle stone. Keep the triangle. Cut clutter. Ask the 4 doors before we speak. The room agreed without applause. On the way home, she bought a small plant and placed it by the window. Growth looked quiet and measurable. Leaves counted light. Roots negotiated with gravity. Saturday, she visited a market with her mother. They chose a bowl with a repaired seam. The seller called it kintsugi and told a story about honoring joins. Aya traced the gold line with a finger and felt the week reflected. She did not want to be new. She wanted to be joined well. That evening, she cleaned the desk and placed the bowl where storm reports had once piled. The room looked like it could hold work without swallowing the worker. Sunday's sit returned to the Four Truths. Lynn asked them to speak the path aloud. Wise view, intention, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, concentration. Aya spoke with the group and felt each word land in the body like a measured step. The path was not a ladder. It was a way to walk together. On Monday, a fresh problem arrived on a short fuse. Aya smiled because storms now spoke a familiar dialect. She built the triangle and wrote 3 boxes. The team followed with less clatter than earlier chapters of their story. The problem walked through the plan like a traveler with the right papers. At dusk, Aya stood by the river and watched her reflection move without drama. She bowed to the water, the work, and the pace that kept both human. She whispered a new sentence at the door. I will not trade clarity for performance. I will not trade peace for applause. The handle turned with the softness of practice. Inside, she placed a hand on the shoulder. Thank you for warning me before I learned to listen. Keep teaching. We will keep the room open. She slept while the sky continued not needing help. The night did its work. The body kept its steady vote for a human speed. In the morning, she found the vow near the sink and read it aloud. Feel fully. Learn kindly. Re-enter gently. The day nodded. The list waited its turn like birds on a rail. She walked to the hill with bread for the birds and breath for herself. The bell rang once. The sound made more room than the week had taken. She took her seat and trusted the pace. Winter leaned against the windows. Aya carried the new roll like a bowl she did not want to spill. The team learned the triangle. Feet, breath, helpful task. A message arrived from the hospital. More tests next month. Fear tried to write the month in red. Aya breathed and wrote the day in pencil. At work, a deadline moved forward. Old Aya would have traded sleep for approval. New Aya chose sequence over spectacle and posted a clear plan for the next 2 hours. Someone replied with a theater of urgency. Aya named 3 facts and 1 next step. The room cooled. A path appeared where noise had been rehearsing. Lynn's talk that night was about the middle path. He said, tight strings snap. Loose strings do not sing. Practice is tuning, not proof of worth. Aya tuned posture by a hair. The breath flowed like a river with room. The jaw resigned from its job as guard and took a part-time role as guest. She remembered the 4 doors of speech. True. kind, timely, necessary. The doors saved hours of repairs. Some sentences never needed to leave the room. A junior teammate made a public mistake. The old script would have scapegoated or ignored. Aya named the lesson and the repair. The lesson stuck. The person stayed. At lunch, Aya walked by water and practiced Tonglen, in with heaviness as a cloud, out with steadiness that does not erase. The body exhaled without argument. Her mother texted a photo of tea and a sweater. Practicing warmth, the caption read, Aya smiled and sent a lantern emoji like a small window lit in winter. Afternoon brought a clash over priorities. Aya wrote the weightless list on the board and circled 3. The room discovered it could agree when decisions became visible. She added a square, feed someone else's ease. A teammate volunteered to create a 5-minute guide. The project moved like a traveler with the right papers. Evenings sit open with the first noble truth again. Dukkha visits even on good days. Aya bowed to the ache that arrives when things are fine and nothing is guaranteed. Lin said the second arrow loves certainty. He smiled and added, certainty is not available. Practice is how we walk without it and still see clearly. Aya wrote, I can be safe without being sure. The sentence felt like a coat that fit better than prediction. Snow came overnight and made silence you could hear. Aya moved slower and arrived calmer. Speed had never actually moved the clock's hands. At the office, a vendor failed a deliverable. Blame looked tempting. Aya asked for sequence and named the smallest repair that would change today. Blame lost its audience. The vendor thanked her for skipping theater. They sent a clean file and a plan. Aya bowed internally to the breath that kept the room human. Her father texted a small fear at 2 a.m. Aya read it at dawn and answered with facts and care. Boundaries and love stood side by side like 2 hands on a bowl. Then spoke about karma as habit energy that can learn. He said we become the grooves we practice. Aya kept practicing grooves that carried less friction and more truth. Midweek, a leader brought praise like weather. Aya enjoyed the breeze and did not try to build a house from it. Praise did not change the next helpful step. The team stumbled on a problem that asked for a brave no. Aya said, not this way, not today. Yes to a smaller path that will actually land. The room looked relieved to be told the truth. In the mirror, Aya placed a hand where the chest room had once felt windowless. Gratitude warmed the walls. The guard watered the plant and opened the curtains. Her mother asked if failure still scared her. Aya said yes, but we travel together now. I do not abandon the body to chase being right. Lin's story that week was about a maker who sands wood slowly. He said, detachment is loyalty to the work, not to your favorite idea. Cut where the work can breathe. Aya read a draft aloud and cut a beloved sentence. The page stood straighter. Attachment had been a weight. The work thanked her with clarity. Friday, an email misread the team's intent and grew sharp edges. Aya replied with four-door speech. She named the part that was true and let the rest pass like wind. The reply softened. People often lower their voices when the room stays calm. The day regained its ordinary temperature. On Saturday, Aya brought soup to her parents. They ate steadily. Her father told a joke about hospital socks. Laughter counted as medicine and required no copay. After dishes, Aya walked alone and asked the body what would reduce harm. The answer was a nap and 10 breaths by a window. She granted both and felt rich. Sunday sit explored forgiveness. Lynn said forgiveness is not pretending it did not hurt. It is stopping the monthly payment to a story that is no longer useful. Aya forgave an old version of herself who sprinted until walls moved. She thanked that runner and offered a bench. The runner sat and pointed out better paths. Monday opened with rain like beaded curtains. The city slowed. Aya matched it. The team finished the first stone of the road map and bowed to the tools. A crisis arrived anyway. A file corrupted, and a promise looked at risk. Aya walked 5 steps, paused, and asked, "What reduces harm right now?" The answer fit on one line. Restore the last clean version. Tell the truth without spice. Deliver the part that changes the day. They did, and the client thanked the pace. A junior apologized with theater for a small slip. Aya said, "Correction is praise here. Thank you for fixing it fast." The junior learned to bow rather than perform. Lynn spoke about right effort as stewardship. He said, "We are caretakers of attention. Spend it where it feeds life. Do not waste it on phantom fires." Aya budgeted the week like a garden. Water here, shade there. Let this row rest. Productivity felt like tending rather than conquest. Her father's appointment moved closer. Fear offered to run the month. Aya offered it a seat and a pen. "Take notes," she said gently. "We will breathe and follow sequence." At the clinic, a technician was late and kind. Kindness weighed more. The body chose to believe the heavier measure. Aya practiced Tonglen in the waiting room, and with the room static, out with a quiet that did not erase anyone's weather. Chairs seemed to relax in their own way. The doctor spoke in complete sentences. The news was mixed in a human way. More monitoring, some relief, no emergencies today. Aya let each sentence land before the next arrived. On the ride home, she noticed the city's noise had rhythm again. She matched breath to crosswalks and did not try to make every light. Her mother said, "I am proud of our pace." Aya laughed and replied, "I am proud of our honesty." Back at work, the team received a note from leadership. "Keep doing whatever you are doing." The room smiled because that meant keep protecting tools and telling the truth. A colleague asked Aya for a private word. They confessed to fear that they could not keep up. Aya shared the triangle and the list. Feet, breath, helpful task. Circle 3. Square 1. They tried together for 1 hour. Work moved with fewer sharp corners. The colleague said, "I did less and finished better." Aya felt the body agree without ceremony. Evening brought a rumor storm online. Aya chose silence and one clarifying line where needed. She did not donate time to trials with no judge. Zen closed the week with a bell. He said, "Resilience is not looking unwounded. It is moving with what is true and letting compassion say when to rest and when to try again." Aya wrote, "I will practice honest speed, not the speed of fear." She placed the card where urgency used to live and noticed the shelf held it easily. Saturday, she mended a button with gold thread as a private joke. Repair can be beautiful without hiding the line. The jacket felt more like hers after the stitch. At dusk, she stood by the river. The water did not ask for applause. It flowed because that is its vow. Aya whispered, "I will flow where I can and rest where I should." She walked home under a sky that did not need her help. The door opened with the confidence of a well-used hinge. The house breathed. Before sleep, she placed a hand on the heart. "Thank you for staying. Thank you for learning. Thank you for warning me early." The body answered by not arguing. In the morning, she found the vow near the sink. Feel fully, learn kindly, re-enter gently. The day nodded like a friend who knows the path by heart. She stepped outside and matched her stride to a pace that could last. Results would arrive in their own season. Practice would carry the bowl without spill. On the hill, the bell rang once. The sound made more room than the week had taken. Aya took her seat and let breath choose the first helpful step. Snow softened the city's edges. Aya's team moved at human speed, but the calendar still tried to bargain. She kept the vow near the sink. Feel fully, learn kindly, re-enter gently. The hospital sent a list of dates. Fear underlined everything. Aya breathed and wrote, "Today, eat and call. Tomorrow will introduce itself without my rehearsal." Lin opened the evening sit with a small bow. He said, "Enoughness is a shelter we build with practice. Over time, the body trusts the roof." He told a story of a boat crossing a wide river. Too much cargo sinks good boats. We practice letting go of weight that does not feed the voyage. Aya felt the truth like a tug at the ribs. She had carried extra reputation stones for years. She pictured setting them on a dock and sailing with room. At work, a pitch arrived with 12 slides in 3 days. The client wanted clarity, not theater. Aya drew 3 stones. Define the heart. Deliver the part that feeds. Decide what can be dropped. A teammate asked if they should add sparkle. Aya smiled. Let's add accuracy and rest. Sparkle will be the space we leave around what matters. They held a quiet hour. Phones rested in a tray. Words stood straighter on the page when no one shouted. The draft breathed like a window opened on purpose. In the afternoon, the hospital rescheduled again. Aya felt heat climb her neck. She placed a hand there and said, "Thank you for warning me. We will move with breath." Her mother texted, "I am practicing warmth, tea and sweater." Aya replied with a lantern emoji and the sentence, "I am practicing sequence and soup." Lynn's talk that night was about right effort as stewardship. Spend attention where it feeds life. Do not donate it to phantom fires. The sentence landed like a policy. Aya wrote an enoughness audit on a card. What will actually change this day? What can be done well by me? What belongs to tomorrow or to no one at all? The next morning, 3 requests arrived dressed as emergencies. Aya circled 1, rescheduled 1, and declined 1 with a kind line. The body stood down from false sirens. At noon, the pitch team met. Aya said, "We will finish the part that feeds and then stop." Stopping on time is part of the work. The room looked relieved to be told the truth. A junior teammate feared the client might want flourishes. Aya taught the 4 doors of speech. We will ask, is that true, kind, timely, necessary? Doors prevent repairs later. They sent the draft early and went for a 10-minute walk. The river kept its own vow. It did not hustle for praise. The team learned by imitation. In the evening, Aya visited her parents. Her father held a joke about hospital socks for the 3rd time. They still laughed as if the world approved of lightness. Later, fatigue argued for scrolling. Aya chose a warm cloth and 8 breaths. She ate simple food and felt richer than hours spent feeding the endless page. Lynn taught Tonglen again, and with shared heaviness as a cloud, out with steadiness that does not erase. He said, "We never breathe alone, even when we sit by ourselves." Aya practiced on a crowded train, shoulders lowered in the mirror of calm. She did not fix anyone. Space itself changed the weather in small ways. Midweek, a leader praised speed in another group. Old ambition woke with boots on. Aya bowed to it once. Aim with vow, not with applause. The boots became walking shoes. A crisis arrived anyway. A file corrupted and a promise trembled. Aya walked 5 steps, paused, and asked for sequence. Restore. Tell the truth. Deliver the part that changes the day. The client thanked them for the clean plan. Panic wanted a parade. Honesty wanted confirmation. Confirmation arrived and cost less. In the mirror, Aya met the face that used to sprint. She said, "I will not abandon the body to win the prize of smoke." The face looked like an ally instead of a project. At the hospital, the technician was late but kind. kindness weighed more. Aya's body decided to believe the heavier measure. The doctor spoke plainly. More watching, no emergencies, adjust one habit. Aya let each sentence land before the next one entered. The room did not spin. Her mother said, "I am proud of our pace." Aya replied, "I am proud of our honesty." They held hands the way people hold a warm cup in winter. At work, the pitch returned with small notes. The client said, "Please do not add flourishes. Keep the clean lines." The team laughed softly and obeyed. A teammate asked how to stop overworking after fear visits. Aya said, "Make one sentence of policy. No second arrows after dark." The sentence fit on a sticky note and saved hours. Thursday brought a flood of opinions from people not in the room. Aya wrote the 3 stones on the board. We will let the river of talk pass and keep stepping on what holds. In the afternoon, a colleague cried in a quiet way. Aya offered presence before advice and asked, "What reduces harm today?" The answer was a nap and a page of clarity. The colleague returned steady. Their work fed the project more than a panicked hour would have. The team learned that repair is faster than denial. Evening Sit explored the third noble truth. Lin said freedom is being able to let go of an idea when reality does not support it. Loyalty to truth is kindness to all bodies involved. Aya released a beloved slide and felt the deck stand taller. Attachment is heavy, she wrote. Cutting was a kindness to meaning. On Friday, a rumor suggested cuts were coming to another group. Aya bowed to grief of strangers she had not met. Grief wrote a receipt, paid for with belonging to the same weather. She sent 3 messages to people she did know. I am here. I can be a reference. I will listen. Help traveled faster than theories. Night invited old fear to audit sleep. Aya placed a palm on the chest and counted 8 breaths. She said, "Control is grief in armor. Grief is welcome. Armor may rest." Sleep arrived like a friend, late but committed. The sky continued not needing help. The house kept breathing without supervision. Saturday's solitude became steady chores. Wash, fold, mend, call. She mended a button with gold thread again and laughed. The jacket felt honest and more hers. In the market, she found a bowl with a repaired seam. The seller said kintsugi. Aya traced the line and thought, I do not want to be new. I want to be joined well. She placed the bowl by her desk, where storm reports used to live. The room looked able to hold work without swallowing the worker. Sunday's sit returned to the path. Wise view, intention, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, concentration. Words landed like steps she could walk for years. Lin shared a practice for transitions. Before and after tasks, 1 breath and 1 bow. The mind learns to set things down when the hands do. Aya tried it. Closing the laptop was a bow, not a door slammed in fear. Opening the notebook was a bow, not a trumpet. On Monday, the pitch meeting began with small storms. Aya named facts and one next stone. The room changed temperature. The client smiled as if the weather forecast had finally told the truth. After the call, the team wanted to add one last shine. Aya said, "Stop it, enough. Enough is a promise kept. More than enough often breaks the bowl." They stopped and sat. The afternoon remained human. No one had to apologize to their body for stealing sleep for a flourish. Her father texted a picture of tea by a window with the caption, "Practicing sway." Aya sent back, "Practicing enough." Both looked like medicine that does not come in a bottle. Midwake, stress cracked the edges of a teammate's voice. Aya suggested a 2-minute quiet with palms open on the desk. The room obeyed silence like a bell no one had to ring. Work resumed with fewer sharp corners. The teammate whispered, "Thank you for policies that include bodies." Aya felt the chest room widen another window. In the evening, Lin answered a question about ambition. He said, "Let vow aim the arrow, and breath pull the bow. Then release. Do not chase the arrow down the field." Aya remembered chasing arrows and missing the field entirely. She laughed and chose to walk to the river, instead of refreshing an inbox that did not love her back. At the river, a Huron modeled patience again. Doing less looked like precision. The bird knew water better than hunger knew noise. Thursday brought an ask that did not fit. Aya wrote, "Not this way, not today. Yes to a smaller path that will land." The sender thanked her for the map instead of a yes that would fail. She practiced wise livelihood by saying no to a project that paid well but would rent her body to stress. The budget of attention mattered as much as numbers on paper. Night tried to sell her a future made of guesses. Aya returned to the soles of the feet and the breath at the nose. The present was enough data to sleep on. Friday's review arrived. The project was accepted with minimal edits. The team ate bread and fruit instead of noise. Celebration felt like a steady table again. A colleague asked for the template that kept them calm. Aya shared the weightless list, the 3 stones, the 4 doors, and the triangle. Tools replaced theater. On the way home, Aya bought a small plant. Growth looked like patience negotiating with light and gravity. She liked being part of that quiet conversation. Saturday morning, she visited the hill early. Lin rang the bell once. The sound made more room than the week had taken. Aya took her seat like someone arriving home. He spoke about acceptance as a warm threshold. You step over with what is true, not with what you wish were true. The house you enter is called enough. Aya pictured her life as that house, a table with 3 bowls, work, rest, service. Each received a small offering. None demanded the others go hungry. She left the sit and walked slowly through a city that had learned, just a little, to match her pace. The river kept its vow. The day did not require a chase. At her door she whispered a sentence to carry. I will not trade clarity for performance. I will not trade peace for applause. The handle turned without resistance. Inside, she placed a hand on the shoulder that used to argue. Thank you for teaching me earlier that I was willing to listen. Keep teaching. I will keep the room open. She wrote the week's policy in simple words. Stop at enough. No second arrows after dark. Breathe, locate, label, listen. The pen moved without hurry. Before sleep, she stood by the window and counted a slow tide. In for 4, a soft hold for 1, out for 6. Repair is allowed to be this ordinary and this effective. She turned off the light. The sky continued not needing help. The night did its work. The house of enough held. In the morning she found the vow near the sink. Feel fully, learn kindly. Re-enter gently. The day nodded. The list waited its turn like birds on a rail. Aya walked toward the hill with bread for the birds and breath for herself. The bell rang once. She trusted the pace that had carried her here and would carry her farther. Morning opened like a page with margins. Aya felt the body vote for a steady speed. The vow waited near the sink like a friend who arrives early and does not rush. An email announced a cross-team merge. New names, new rules, old deadlines. The list tried to grow teeth again. Aya breathed and built the triangle. Feet, breath, helpful task. She wrote 3 stones on a card. Define the heart. Deliver the part that feeds. Decide what can be dropped. The card weighed less than panic ever had. At Stand Up, someone asked for heroic hours. Aya offered sequence and boundaries. We will work clean and stop on time. Results land better when the tools are not burning. After the call, a private message arrived. Does calm mean you do not care? Aya smiled and answered, calm means I can care without tearing. The shoulder agreed by not arguing. Evening sit focused on equanimity. Lynn said, balance is the warmth that does not pick sides against truth. It lets joy and fear sit at the same table without throwing dishes. Aya felt the week trying to pull her into extremes. She placed a hand on the heart and whispered, I will not abandon you to impress a storm. Her father texted, new appointment next week. Unclear, fear reached for boots. Aya bowed to it once and said, take notes, not the wheel. Lynn taught a short practice. On the inhale, let be. On the exhale, keep kind. Let be does not mean do nothing. It means stop fighting the weather while you walk the path. At work, a stubborn slide refused to speak. Aya stood, walked 5 steps, paused, and returned. The sentence arrived as if it had been waiting in the hallway. A teammate shadowed Aya for the day. They watched her write the Weightless List and circle 3. They asked, "What about the rest?" Aya said, "The rest belongs to tomorrow or to no one." A heated thread started online about the project. Old Aya would have rented a courtroom. New to Aya wrote one clarifying line and closed the tab like a bow. Midday, the hospital phoned. A nurse's voice, kind and tired, asked for a reschedule. Aya repeated the details back slowly. Kindness weighed more. The body chose the heavier measure. She ate without scrolling and felt richer. Food was information the body could trust. The present was enough data to carry the afternoon honestly. Lynn's talk that night was on Wise View. He said the world is not obligated to match your plans. Practice teaches you to meet what is here without losing your vow. Aya wrote a small sentence. "I will meet reality and keep dignity." The sentence fit in a pocket and traveled better than forecasts. A crisis arrived anyway. A file corrupted and a rumor grew teeth. Aya asked the room for sequence. Restore, tell the truth, deliver the peace that changes the day. The room obeyed the map. Panic asked for a parade. Honesty asked for confirmation. Confirmation arrived and cost less than noise. On the train home, a child laughed at their reflection. Aya laughed too and forgot to appear composed. Relief stayed for 2 stops without demanding a speech. Her mother texted a photo of tea by the window. Practicing warmth, Aya sent back, practicing sequence. Both felt like medicines that do not require a prescription. Saturday brought solitude. Aya cleaned slowly and let the floor tell her where she had hurried. She mended a seam and felt the day choose coherence over spectacle. She placed 3 bowls on the table again. Work, rest, service, each received a small offering. Balance light visible altars with ordinary items. On a walk, she met an old neighbor who had been through many winters. He said, "I learned to shovel, only the snow that falls in my yard." She wrote, right size, in her notebook. Sunday Sit introduced the 4 immeasurables: loving kindness, compassion, empathetic joy, equanimity. Lynn said, practice them like directions on a map you actually follow. Aya tried phrases for herself. May I be safe. May I be kind. May I find ease. Then for others, may you be safe. May you be kind. May you find ease. The chest room grew light at the edges. Monday asked for a sprint disguised as a plan. Aya said, not this way, not today. Yes to a version that lands. The room looked relieved to be told the truth. A vendor missed a delivery and blamed the clock. Aya named facts and the next stone. The vendor thanked her for skipping theater and sent a clean file. In a one-on-one, a junior teammate confessed to borrowing worth from applause. Aya said, applause is wind. Let vow be your meal. Wind is nice. It will not feed you. Her father's test date moved again. Aya felt heat. She put a warm cloth on the neck and said, thank you for warning me. We will keep pace with breath. Lin answered a question about control. He said, "Control is often grief in armor. Let grief speak, and control may set down the shield." The room grew 40% softer in one sentence. A rumor online misread Aya's calm as detachment. She wrote 2 lines with the 4 doors, true and kind, timely and necessary. Then she returned to work that feeds. Midweek, fatigue tested vows. Aya closed her eyes for 9 breaths. The world turned without supervision. The next paragraph wrote itself like a tide that knew its shoreline. She remembered the second arrow and put down the bow. Pain was enough to carry. She did not owe interest to a story that never fed anyone. A leader praised speed elsewhere and asked for more sparkle. Aya offered accuracy and rest. The leader laughed and later repeated the line in a meeting as if he invented it. She did not mind. At lunch, she walked by the river. A Huron modeled patience again. Doing less looked like precision. The bird trusted the water more than hunger trusted noise. Back at the desk, Aya cut a beloved sentence. The page stood taller. Attachment had been the weight. Detachment became loyalty to the work, not to the old idea. Evening brought a call from the hospital with mixed news. More watching, no emergencies. Aya let each sentence land before the next arrived. Breath carried the words without spilling. She cooked soup and ate slowly. She texted, "I am here," to her parents. She did not invent storms to feel useful. Presence passed as help without bragging. Thursday arrived with 3 meetings that existed by habit. Aya canceled 2 and sent 1 clear page instead. The room discovered it had hours it did not know it owned. A teammate asked how to say no without guilt. Aya taught a sentence, "Not this way, not today." Yes to a smaller path that will land. The sentence fit on a sticky note and traveled well. Lin taught walking meditation in pairs again. 1 walks, 1 watches. The watcher says, "I see shoulders soften. I see breath widen." Aya softened sooner when kindness narrated reality. Friday's demo needed 1 run through. Aya stopped after 1. Extra runs would fray edges. The demo landed with room for questions and no theater of speed. Her manager asked for a weekend push. Aya offered a Monday plan with clear benefits. The manager agreed. The sky refused to fall on schedule. That night she wrote a short policy. Stop at enough. No second arrows after dark. Breathe, locate, label, listen. The pen moved without hurry and the shelf held the card easily. Saturday she carried bread and fruit to her parents. They ate steadily and told small stories with no moral. Connection did not need stage lights to count. On the way home, she passed the market and saw bowls with gold seams. She touched 1 line and felt tenderness for every repair that had kept her from breaking. She placed a bowl on her desk where storm reports used to pile. The room looked like a place a person could live and work without disappearing. Sunday's sit returned to the four truths: wise view, intention, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, concentration. The words felt like footsteps on ground that would hold. A storm of news headlines tried to sell panic. Aya bowed to grief for strangers and practiced vows on compassion, opened then closed to refill. The cup learned sustainable kindness. Monday asked for a decision with incomplete data. Aya wrote the triangle on a sticky note: feet, breath, helpful task. Then she chose the next stone that actually changed the day. A co-worker thanked her for policies that included bodies. Aya felt the chest room grow another window, and the guard water the plant without being asked. Midweek, a friend texted from far away. "I am drowning in expectations." Aya replied, "Circle 3, square 1, delete 1. Then step outside for 8 breaths." The friend wrote back, "I can breathe." Then closed the week with a bell and a line. Equanimity is a warm horizon. It does not shrink storms. It gives them somewhere to move without taking you with them. Aya wrote "warm horizon" on her card. She placed it near the sink with the vow: feel fully, learn kindly, re-enter gently. The day nodded like a friend who knew the path by heart. That night's sleep arrived on time. The sky continued, not needing help. The house breathed. The window stayed open a safe width for winter. Morning brought a small request to do more than a day could hold. Aya answered with right size and right speed. The sender thanked her for telling the truth early. At the river, she practiced letting results arrive without chasing them. Leaves released branches without apology. Hands knew when to open. She carried that opening to the team. We will praise corrections more than perfection. We will keep human speed. We will protect tools. Heads nodded and work moved like water finding its channel. A vendor called with news that a part would be late. Aya asked for sequence and the smallest repair that would change today. The call ended with gratitude instead of performance. Evening brought quiet pride that did not need a stage. Aya thanked the tools and the breath. The laptop closed like a door gently latched. She rehearsed a sentence for hard mornings. I can choose sequence over spectacle. The mouth learned its shape until it felt natural. A neighbor knocked to borrow a tool. Aya lent it and felt the simple economy of shared ease. Karma ripened into small, nourishing harvests. At dusk, she stood by the window and counted a slow tide. In for 4, a soft hold for 1, out for 6. Repair does not need a parade to be real. She wrote one more line before bed. I will not trade clarity for performance. I will not trade peace for applause. The handle turned without resistance. Before sleep, she placed a hand on the heart. Thank you for staying. Thank you for warning me early. "Thank you for learning." The body answered by not arguing. In the morning, she found the vow where it always waits. Feel fully, learn kindly, re-enter gently. She stepped into a pace she could keep. On the hill, the bell rang once. The sound made more room than the week had taken. Aya took her seat and let breath choose the first helpful step. The gentle rebuild, already underway, continued. Cold mornings wrote frost on the grass. Aya brewed tea and read the vow. Feel fully, learn kindly, re-enter gently. The words warmed the day without demanding heroics. At work, the merged team met for the first time. New voices filled the room with overlapping weather. Aya kept the triangle, feet on floor, breath in the nose, helpful task in reach. A manager described a stretch goal as if speed could replace air. Aya asked, "What actually changes today?" The room found 3 stones and stopped inventing thunder. Her father texted a new scan date. Uncertain. Aya felt heat at the neck and placed a hand there. "Thank you for warning me." Ming. "We will move with breath and keep the window open." That night Lin spoke on courage. He said, "Courage is not the end of fear. It is honest movement while fear rides along without steering." Aya wrote, "Let fear ride without keys." The sentence felt practical enough to keep in a pocket next to bus fare and a pen. A rumor thread online sharpened. Old Aya would have rented a courtroom. New Aya wrote one clarifying line, bowed to silence, and returned to work that feeds. In the hallway, a colleague whispered, "I cannot sleep." Aya shared the tide count. In for 4, a soft hole for 1, out for 6. The colleague repeated and found the floor again. Midweek, a slide refused to say what it meant. Aya walked 5 steps, paused, and returned. The sentence arrived as if it had been waiting by the door the whole time. She practiced wise livelihood by declining a side project that would rent her body to stress. She offered a smaller version that would land. The sender thanked her for telling the truth early. Evening sit turned to the second arrow. Lin said, "Pain is the first arrow. Our reaction often fires the second. Tonight we put the bow down and practice repair." Aya remembered nights when she fired volleys at herself after small slips. She wrote a policy. No second arrows after dark. The body felt safer under that law. At the hospital, a technician joked about winter socks. The joke did not fix anything. It connected. Aya sensed how connection lowers the cost of fear, enough to let breath work. Waiting rooms taught her to see 2 speeds, sprint and sway. She practiced sway and discovered conversations arrived at kinder honesty when time stopped barking. The scan ended with a list of next steps. Some were clear, some were fog. Aya repeated each sentence back until the nurse nodded. Truth traveled better that way. She brought soup and bread to her parents. They ate as if food were information the body could trust. After dishes, they told small stories with no moral. Joy did not require a thesis. A storm of notices hit the merged team. Aya drew the weightless list on the board. Circle 3 that changed today. Square 1 that feeds someone else's ease. Delete 1 that belongs to no one. The room sighed as if released from a costume. Work moved like a traveler with the right papers. People stopped auditioning for a movie that was not being filmed. Lynn taught equanimity as a warm horizon. It does not shrink the storm. It gives it somewhere to move so it does not take you with it. Aya felt her chest room widen at the edges. A junior teammate asked how to stay kind while afraid. Aya said, "Give fear a chair and a pencil. Let it take notes. Keep the keys with breath and vow." Thursday brought a surprise escalation. The client added a demand with no oxygen. Aya asked for sequence. Define the heart. Deliver the part that feeds. Decide what can be dropped. The plan fit on one page. The room changed temperature. Speed became precision. Precision became enoughness that other people could trust. That night, a comment online misread Aya's calm as not caring. She answered with 4-door speech. She named what was true and let the rest pass like weather. Silence returned by itself. Courtrooms dismiss themselves for lack of oxygen when we do not become the prosecutor and the judge. Her mother texted a photo of tea by a sunny window. Practicing warmth, the caption read. Aya replied with practicing sequence and sent a picture of soup beside a list with 3 circles. Friday, a leader praised theater in a different group. Old ambition reached for boots. Aya bowed to it once. Aim with vow, not with applause. The boots became walking shoes again. Evening sit explored karma as grooves we practice. Lynn said, "We become the roads we travel most. Choose roads that carry less friction and more truth." Aya traced old grooves with a finger and felt where they still tugged. She chose the middle path and drew a new groove that bodies could actually walk without tearing. Saturday's solitude became steady chores. Wash, fold, mend, call. She mended a seam with gold thread and laughed softly. Repair did not hide the line. It honored the joining. At the river, a heron stood longer than seemed possible. Doing less looked like accuracy again. The bird trusted water more than hunger trusted noise. Sunday's temple talk turned to acceptance. Lynn said, "Acceptance is a warm threshold. You step over with what is true, not what you wish were true. The house you enter is called enough." Aya pictured her life as that house. A table with 3 bowls, work, rest, service. Each received a small offering. None demanded the others go hungry. Monday asked for a decision with incomplete data. Aya chose the next small, helpful stone and named what would be reassessed tomorrow. Honesty walked farther than bravado. A teammate snapped in a thread. Aya felt heat rise. She breathed, softened the jaw, and asked a clarifying question. The thread followed the question instead of the sting. Her father texted, tired but okay. Relief moved through like rain that knows where to land. She let gratitude finish its route without drafting new fear. Lin answered a question about control. He said, "Control is often grief in armor. Let grief speak, and control may set down the shield." The room softened without losing spine. Aya wrote, "Grief aloud, shield rests." The sentence traveled better than predictions and did not cost extra sleep. Midweek, a vendor called late with bad news and a clean tone. Aya valued the tone. They named the smallest repair that would change today and moved on without theater. At lunch, Aya shared the triangle with a colleague who felt faint from speed, feet, breath, helpful task. They practiced for 2 minutes and returned with steadier hands. Evening brought fatigue. Aya closed her eyes for 9 breaths. The next paragraph wrote itself like a tide remembering its shoreline. Rest sharpened the pencil more than force ever did. She cut a favorite sentence from the deck. The page stood taller. Detachment felt like loyalty to the work rather than betrayal of style. The cut fed meaning. Thursday morning, fear woke early and asked to drive. Aya bowed once and said, "No keys today. You may ride and take notes. We will let breath steer through fog." The day respected the boundary. Fear sulked and then offered useful details. Anxiety can be an analyst when it is not the executive. Friday arrived with a decision that would affect colleagues. Aya named the people, the facts, and the next stone. She sent 3 messages that honored work and offered real help. On the walk home, she realized struggle had not left. The relationship had changed. She was not bracing against life. She was walking beside it and listening. She wrote a line before bed. "I will not trade clarity for performance. I will not trade peace for applause." The hand relaxed and the pen did not race. Night kept its vow. The sky continued not needing help. The house breathed. The window stayed open a safe width for winter. In the morning, she found the vow waiting where it always was. Feel fully, learn kindly, re-enter gently. She stepped into a pace she could keep and carried bread for birds. On the hill, the bell rang once. The sound made more room than the week had taken. Aya took her seat and trusted the practice that had carried her here. Spring loosened winter's grip. Aya felt a small lift inside the chest room where windows had multiplied. The vow at the sink looked less like medicine and more like a friend. Work settled into a quieter rhythm. The merged team began to trust human speed. People discovered quality when the calendar stopped barking. Lin opened the evening sit with a story. He said, "A river does not apologize for its pace. Where it bends, it bends. Where it rests, it rests. Wisdom is moving like water you can trust. Aya wrote, "Be the river you can trust." The sentence fit inside her shoe like a map she could feel with every step. A request arrived dressed as an emergency. Aya drew 3 stones. Define the heart. Deliver the part that feeds. Decide what can be dropped. The storm shrank to fit the day. A junior asked how to keep hope without clinging. Aya said, hold with warm hands and open fingers, care deeply. Do not clutch. The plant grows better when roots have room. Her father sent a message after a follow-up. Mixed news. No emergencies, more watching. Aya breathed and let sentences land before the next arrived. The floor held. She practiced toggling on the train, in with the car static as a cloud, out with steadiness that does not erase. The atmosphere learned manners without a speech. Midweek, a leader asked for sparkle. Aya offered accuracy and rest. The leader joked and then repeated her line in a meeting as if it were theirs. She smiled and let the wind pass through. At lunch, she walked by the river and learned again that patience is a skill, not a mood. The Huron agreed by doing nothing that looked flashy and everything that worked. Evenings sit focused on wise effort. Lynn said, stewardship of attention is the heart of peace. Spend it where it feeds life. Do not tip it into phantom fires. Aya audited her week with the card. What will change the day? What can I do well? What belongs to tomorrow or to no one? The answers lowered the room's temperature. Thursday brought a snag that used to require heroics. Aya asked for sequence. Restore. Tell the truth. Deliver the peace that changes the day. The client thanked the clarity. A rumor thread pulled at attention like Velcro. Aya replied with one clarifying line and closed the tab like a bow. Court time saved Fed real work. At home, she watered the plant that marked her desk like a small green metronome. Growth kept time with light and plain care. The lesson was legible without being loud. Her mother texted a picture of tea with the caption, "Practicing warmth again." Aya sent back, "Practicing river," and included a photo of the path by water. Friday's review ended with minimal edits. The team ate bread and fruit instead of noise. Celebration felt like a steady table that did not wobble under praise. A colleague asked for the recipe. Aya shared the triangle, the weightless list, the 3 stones, the 4 doors, and the sentence about enough. Tools travel better than pep talks. Saturday's solitude became errands in the right size. She mended a sleeve, folded laundry, and called a friend who needed listening more than advice. Service felt like breath with good posture. Sunday at the temple, Lynn taught about joy that does not depend on victory. He said joy notices what is alive and shares warmth without receipts. Aya practiced empathetic joy for a teammate's success. she felt no less for their more. The chest room gained light rather than losing it to jealousy. Monday tested the river with construction on the route. Aya found a detour without declaring a crisis. The day moved around the obstacle like water shaped by rock. A vendor missed another delivery. Instead of theater, Aya named the smallest repair that would change today. The vendor thanked her for not auditioning for a blame play. Evening brought a message from the nurse. A checkup moved later. Relief and worry braided like rope. Aya breathed until strands could be seen and handled one at a time. She wrote a line for hard mornings. I can walk with fear without giving it keys. The sentence felt like a jacket that fit. Midweek, a teammate confessed to hiding mistakes. Aya said, "Correction is praise here." The team clapped quietly for honesty and fixed the line in 5 minutes. Lynn answered a question about identity. He said, "You are not the storm you are passing through. You are the sky that holds weather without taking it personally." Aya wrote, "Be the sky. Let weather move." The letters looked like windows that did not need locks to stay. Thursday brought praise that could have become diet. Aya tasted it and did not build a menu from wind. She returned to the next helpful step with calm appetite. Her father texted a photo of a repaired mug. He wrote, practicing gold lines. Aya felt the weak shine without pretending the glaze had never cracked. She visited after work with soup. They ate slowly, naming the day's honest parts. Relief was not a parade. It was a chair that held. Friday's demo needed exactly 1 run. Aya stopped after 1 and bowed to the tools. The demo landed with room for questions and no theater of speed. That night, a worry tried to collect rent. Aya placed a palm on the chest and counted 8 breaths. Control unclenched and grief was allowed to sit without armor. Saturday, she volunteered at the community kitchen. Stirring soup counted as practice. People left warmer than they arrived. Service watered roots she could not see. In the afternoon, she walked by the river with a friend who was grieving. They said little. The river did most of the talking by staying itself. Sunday's sit returned to the path. Wise view, intention, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, concentration. The words felt like stones in a river she knew by foot now. Lynn closed with a line, "Flow where you can, rest where you should, resist only what harms." Aya wrote it down and felt the body agree. Monday brought a high-stakes decision. Aya named the people, the facts, and the next small stone. She sent 3 notes that carried kindness without delay. Midweek, an online comment tried to turn her into a story. Aya refused the role and returned to the work that feeds. Stories without truth did not get free rent. She taught the triangle to a new hire and watched relief arrive in their shoulders. The room adopted the rhythm like music everyone already knew. Thursday's obstacle looked like fog rather than a wall. Aya moved one step, listened, and moved again. The map appeared as she walked instead of being argued into existence. Her mother texted, "I walked slowly today and did not feel behind." Aya replied, "Pace is a relationship, not a race." They both smiled at a sentence worth keeping. Friday closed with a clean send. The team bowed to the week. They honored corrections more than perfection. Repairs were visible and praised. At dusk, Aya stood by the river and watched a thin moon write silver on moving water. She whispered, "Thank you for carrying me at an honest speed." She placed a hand on the heart and another on the belly. "May I be safe. May I be kind. May I find ease." She offered the same to anyone still walking in the dark. Night came without argument. The sky continued, not needing help. The house breathed. The window stayed open the right width for spring. In the morning, she found the vow where it waits. Feel fully, learn kindly, re-enter gently. She stepped into a day that did not require theater to count as real. On the hill, the bell rang once and made more room than the week had taken. Aya took her seat and let breath choose the first helpful step in the river inside. Spring grew, leaves the color of beginnings. Aya stood at the sink and read the vow. Feel fully, learn kindly, re-enter gently. The words sounded less like rescue and more like rhythm. The temple invited volunteers for a silent week. Cook, clean, sit, and listen. Aya signed up not to escape life, but to meet it without theater. Lynn said, "A silent week is not the absence of sound. It is the practice of not arguing with what you hear. You let reality finish its sentence." Aya packed simple clothes and a small card with a triangle. Feet, breath, helpful task. The card felt like a compass that did not need batteries. The opening bell widened the room the way rain widens soil. Phones slept in a basket. Time stopped barking and began to walk beside them. Morning practice was sweeping. Aya learned that floors confess where we rush. The broom wrote slow lines that the body could read. Breakfast was porridge, fruit, and gratitude. Chewing counted as meditation. The table became a place where hunger and kindness met without receipts. During sitting, Aya met the usual parade. Plans, worries, rehearsals. She labeled each gently and let them bow their way out of the room. Lynn taught a short gatha for breath. Breathing in, I arrive. Breathing out, I am here. The sentence did not need permission from the past to work. Walking meditation crossed a wooden bridge. The creek spoke in complete sentences. Aya matched her saws to the boards as if learning a new alphabet. A bell sounded for work period. In the kitchen, knives moved without hurry. Chopping carrots felt like editing. Cut where the soup can breathe. A volunteer dropped a bowl and froze. The room did not wince. Someone bowed, another fetched a broom, and the moment became a lesson instead of a trial. At noon, Lin spoke about generosity. He said, "Give what you can carry. Give attention, give rest, give clarity. All are forms of food." Aya washed pots and thought about giving clarity at work. The memory felt like setting down extra paragraphs and letting the point be fed first. In the afternoon, she weeded a path with another volunteer named Myra. They worked in a companionable silence that did not need to audition for friendship. Myra finally said one sentence, "My mother is sick too." Aya nodded. Compassion recognized itself without a speech. Evening practice returned to the hall. Lin offered a talk on suffering and its causes. He said we suffer more when we insist on singing only one season. Aya felt where she had insisted on summer. She loosened her hand around the rope and let the season be what it was without bargaining. Before bed, the group shared tea. No one tried to fix anyone. Warmth did the heavy lifting that words sometimes fail to carry. Day 2 began with bells and pale light. Aya wrote the 3 stones on her card. Define the heart. Deliver the part that feeds. Decide what can be dropped. A monk asked for help in the garden. Aya learned to water the base of plants, not their leaves. Nourish the root and trust the rest to follow. Lin taught Tonglen again while clouds forgot to hurry, and with the rune's heaviness as a cloud, out with steadiness that does not erase. The air learned manners without debate. During chores, Myra asked how to keep boundaries without guilt. Aya said, "Not this way, not today." Yes to a smaller path that will land. The sentence fit in a pocket. At rest period, Aya lay on a mat and watched light make squares on the floor. Rest did not ask for proof of worth. It offered credit to bodies that remembered to lie down. The afternoon brought a letter from home delivered in the office. Mixed news, more watching, no emergencies. Aya read each line once and let it land before opening the next. She walked a loop and let grief speak without a microphone. Control set down its shield when grief was allowed to stay without performing. Supper tasted like enough. Rice, greens, soup, and a plum. The kitchen bowed to the farmers whose names they did not know. Gratitude traveled well without addresses. Day 3, silence had softened into companionship. Aya could hear the difference between craving and clean hunger. One shouted. The other asked and waited. A novice struggled with a kettle and almost cried. Aya met their eyes, smiled, and moved slower on purpose. The kettle learned by watching hands that refused to hurry. Lin spoke about wise speech. Is it true, kind, timely, necessary? He added a 5th door for retreat. Is silence the wiser friend right now? Aya practiced the 5th door all afternoon. Fewer words made more room for meaning. People's shoulders dropped when talk did not compete with breath. At dusk they practiced metta. May I be safe. May I be kind. May I find ease. Then for others, may you be safe. May you be kind. May you find ease. Aya sent metta to her parents, to colleagues, to people who might misunderstand her online. Warmth traveled without a return address and still found its way. Night held without argument. The sky continued not needing help. The house of the retreat breathed. Aya felt kept. Day 4 opened with rain. Work period moved indoors to repair cushions. Aya stitched gold thread through a tear and laughed softly at the echo of kintsugi in cloth. Lin answered a question about identity. He said, "You are not the storm you are passing through. You are the sky that holds weather without taking it personally." Aya wrote, "Be the sky. Let weather move." The letters looked like windows that chose openness without locks. Mira worried aloud that going home would erase the calm. Lin said, "Calm is not a souvenir. It is a policy. Renew it daily like bread." During lunch, a tray slipped and soup kissed the floor. People moved with practiced care. No one auditioned for blame. The cleanup felt like choreography instead of drama. Afternoon sitting brought restlessness. Aya labeled it and asked, "What reduces harm right now?" She stood for walking practice and let the body lead the mind into cooperation. Evening talk turned to forgiveness. Lin said, "Forgiveness is ending the monthly payment to a story that no longer feeds anyone. Debt canceled by clarity." Aya wrote a letter she would never send. "Thank you for teaching me where my limits were. I am spending my energy differently now." The page felt lighter after the ink dried. Day 5, a visiting teacher led a workshop on right livelihood. He said, "Do not rent your body to work that starves your values. Choose tools that let you sleep." Aya pictured times she had traded peace for applause. The image felt like carrying water in a sieve. She promised to choose bowls that hold. During service, a pipe clogged and the sink backed up. People gathered without panic. A plumber volunteer arrived with a calm voice and a wrench that fit. He said, "Problems are just unlabeled steps. Define, do, drop." The water applauded by leaving through the proper door. At sunset, Aya walked the bridge. She realized the retreat had not removed struggle. It had taught her to stand beside it and introduce it to breath. Day 6. Silence deepened into clarity. Aya noticed she reached for her phone in memory, not in need. She placed her hand on the table instead and felt present. Lin offered a final teaching before closing day. He said, "Transmission is not a ceremony. It is how you carry the bowl through your Tuesday without spilling." Aya wrote a vow for the return. "I will keep human speed. I will praise corrections more than perfection. I will be loyal to reality and kind to bodies. Closing day arrived. The bell rang and people spoke again. Voices sounded like tools returned to their places, clean and useful. Myra hugged Aya and said, "We will fail at this sometimes." Aya smiled. "Then we will bow and begin again." Beginning again counted as expertise. Aya walked home with a calmer stride. The city did not change. Her relationship to it did. Weather remained weather. She stopped taking it personally. Back at work, people asked how the week went. Aya said, "I learned to sweep without hurrying and to answer with one clear sentence when a paragraph tries to perform." Emails stacked like impatient birds. Aya stood still inside. She circled 3, squared 1, and deleted 1 that belonged to no one. The flock landed without noise. A leader requested sparkle. Aya offered accuracy and rest. Sparkle appeared by itself as the space around meaning. Her father texted a photo of tea and a book, practicing warmth and quiet. Aya replied, practicing Tuesday transmission. They traded pictures of small bowls that held. Midweek brought a surprise request from another team. Aya wrote, "Not this way, not today. Yes to a smaller path that will land." They thanked her for honesty that spared them repairs. A rumor thread tried to conscript attention. Aya wrote one clarifying line and closed a tab like a bow. Court time saved became work that fed. She taught a mini session to her team on the triangle and the 4 doors, shoulders lowered in real time. Relief is a metric that is easy to read and hard to fake. Evening, she walked by the river. The Huron stood in its steady way. Doing less looked like precision again. She felt the body agree without ceremony. Friday closed with a clean send and minimal edits. The team ate bread and fruit instead of noise. Celebration took the shape of a steady table. At home, Aya placed a small plant by the repaired bowl. Growth negotiated with light and gravity and asked for nothing dramatic. She liked that kind of request. She wrote one sentence for difficult days. "I can walk with fear without giving it keys." The hand relaxed around the pen as if understanding. Saturday, she visited her parents. They played a quiet game of cards while tea cooled to the right temperature. Connection did not require speeches to count as real. Aya's mother asked how to practice acceptance. Aya said, "Step over the threshold with what is true. The house you enter is called enough." On the way home, Aya met a neighbor at the elevator who looked heavy. They rode in silence and shared a small nod that said, "I see you carrying something. May it get lighter." Sunday at the temple, Lynn invited anyone to share a sentence from the week. Aya said, "Calm is a policy. Renew it daily like bread." People smiled like someone had described the taste they knew. Lynn bowed and said, "That is transmission. Take it to Monday. Let the city hear it in your pace. Monday invited back the usual storms. Aya built the triangle and placed the card with the 3 stones nearby. Feet, breath, helpful task, define, do, drop. A file broke and a deadline grinned. Aya restored the last clean version, told the truth without spice, and delivered the part that changed the day. The grin lost interest. She ended the day with a bow to the tools and to the people the work would feed. Closure kept the mind from dragging the past forward by its sleeve. Before sleep, Aya stood by the window and counted a slow tide. In for 4, a soft hold for 1, out for 6. Repair stayed ordinary and effective. She placed a hand on the heart. Thank you for staying. Thank you for learning. Thank you for warning me early. The body answered by not arguing. Night held. The sky continued not needing help. The house breathed. The window stayed open the right width for spring. In the morning, she found the vow where it always waited. Feel fully, learn kindly, re-enter gently. She stepped into a pace she could keep and carried bread for birds. On the hill, the bell rang once and made more room than the week had taken. Aya took her seat and trusted the quiet transmission to continue in the ordinary day. Summer brushed the city with warm light. Aya read the vow at the sink. Feel fully, learn kindly, re-enter gently. The words sounded like a friend who keeps showing up on time. The team's rhythm settled. Less theater, more making. People trusted the triangle and the 3 stones. Work moved with fewer sharp corners. Lynn announced a community night at the temple. Bring 1 practice that helped you. Share it in 5 minutes. Aya chose the Weightless List and the 4 doors. Her father texted a picture of a repaired mug. Practicing gold lines, he wrote. Aya smiled at the proof that repair could be ordinary and beautiful. At the office, a new hire named Jay whispered that panic kept them awake. Aya taught the tide count. In for 4, a soft hold for 1, out for 6. They practiced until shoulders lowered. Jay asked, "What if I fail?" Aya said, "We bow, repair, and begin again." Expertise is repeating that cycle with less drama and more kindness. A vendor apologized for delay. Aya said, "Thank you for telling us early. What is the smallest repair that changes today?" The call ended with a plan that fit in 1 page. Evening sit focused on the Eightfold Path. Lynn said, "Wise view and intention aim the arrow. Speech and action knock it. Livelihood, effort, mindfulness, concentration, draw, and release." Aya felt how the path turned effort into craft. Doing less was not laziness. It was accuracy with a human heart. The merged team adopted a daily quiet hour. Phones rested like tools cooling on a bench. Output improved and tempers softened without a memo about civility. A rumor online tried to rent Aya's attention. She wrote 1 clarifying line and closed the tab like a bow. Courtrooms need prosecutors. She declined the role. Her mother set a photo of tea beside a window, practicing warmth. Aya replied, practicing enough, and attached a picture of a short to-do list with 3 circles. Community night filled the hall with soft voices. Aya shared the Weightless List, circled 3, squared 1, and named how deleting one item is sometimes the kindest act. Someone asked about saying no. Aya taught the sentence, "Not this way, not today." Yes to a smaller path that will land. The room exhaled as if a tight belt had been loosened. Lynn asked Aya to guide a walking meditation. Place attention in the soles. Let the world move without your pushing it. Aya's pace taught more than her words. Afterward, Myra found Aya. "My mother is better this month," she said. "Not cured, carried softer." Aya bowed to the sentence as if it were a small lantern placed in memory. At work the next day, leadership requested sparkle. Aya offered accuracy and rest. Sparkle appeared as space around meaning. People noticed without a slideshow on noticing. Midweek, the hospital called to confirm an upcoming test. Aya asked 2 clear questions and repeated the answers. Clarity traveled without dropping pieces. A colleague snapped in a thread. Aya felt heat rise and chose the 4 doors. Only 2 opened. She spoke through those and declined the rest without anger. She wrote a policy on a card for the team. Praise corrections more than perfection. The card stood up by itself as if proud to be sensible. Lynn's talk turned to karma as grooves. He said, "You are learning to carve new grooves that do not tear the feet that walk them. Keep the tools sharp and the pace human." Aya taught a mini-session called the Gentle Toolkit. Triangle, 3 stones, 4 doors, tied count, and bowing at the end of tasks. Relief arrived like accurate rain. Her father texted, tired but okay. Aya breathed until gratitude finished its route. She did not draft fresh worry to prove she cared. Friday brought a delivery disaster. Old Aya would have sprinted and leaked second arrows. New Aya gathered facts, named the smallest repair, and wrote a clean plan. The vendor thanked the team for skipping theater. A colleague said it felt like we had more time. Aya thought we had less friction. Weekend arrived with a community cleanup by the river. Aya joined Jay and others with bags and gloves. Service made sense in the body faster than speeches did. She found a bowl with a gold seam at a thrift table. The seller told a story about honoring joins. Aya traced the line and felt her week reflected without performance. Sunday, Lynn taught about joy that does not depend on winning. Joy notices what is alive and shares warmth without receipts. The hall felt like a quiet sunroom. Monday asked for a decision with fog around the edges. Aya chose one small stone, named what would be reassessed and moved. Fog respects steady feet. Jay confessed they had hidden a mistake. Aya said, "Correction is praise here." They fixed it in 5 minutes and learned a sentence that saved hours later. Her mother texted, "I walked slowly today and did not feel behind." Aya replied, "Pace is a relationship, not a race." Both kept the line. Evening sit turned to forgiveness again. Lynn said, "End the monthly payment to a story that does not feed anyone." Aya canceled a bill with one clean breath. A leader asked Aya how to teach this to other teams. She said, "Share tools, not slogans. Tools change hands. Slogans compete for applause." Midweek brought a message from the nurse. The test moved later. Relief and worry braided like rope. Aya breathed until strands could be handled one at a time. She cooked soup and brought it to her parents. They ate slowly and told small stories with no moral. Connection did not need stage lights to count as real. A rumor storm online tried again. Aya answered once and then returned to work that fed the day. Courts without oxygen dismissed themselves. Jay presented their first quiet hour report. It was simple and useful. The room praised the corrections they had made more than how shiny the file looked. Lynn asked Aya to mentor 2 newcomers. She said yes with boundaries. 1 hour, 1 page. They learned to bow at the end of tasks and to rest before collapse. Thursday, a vendor asked for a weekend push. Aya offered a Monday plan with clear benefits. The vendor agreed and later thanked her for defending tools they did not own. Her father's appointment finally arrived. The doctor spoke in full sentences. More watching, some progress. No emergencies today. Aya let each line land before the next entered. She walked the hospital halls with her mother and counted a slow tide. In for 4, a soft hold for 1, out for 6. The floor held. Fear rode without keys. Back at work, the team shipped on time with minimal edits. The celebration was bread and fruit, not noise. The table did not wobble under praise. A colleague asked how to hold hope. Aya said, "Hold with warm hands and open fingers. Care deeply. Do not clutch. Plants grow better when roots have room." Friday's demo needed 1 run. Aya stopped after 1. Extra runs would fray edges. The demo landed with room for questions and no theater of speed. Weekend brought a long walk by the river. The Huron modeled patience again. Doing less looked like precision. The bird knew water better than hunger knew noise. Saturday night, Aya wrote a sentence for storm days. "I can walk with fear without giving it keys." The pen moved without hurry. The body understood. Sunday's community sit closed with metta for the wider circle. May we be safe. May we be kind. May we find ease. May we reduce harm. The room answered by breathing together. On Monday, leadership asked Aya to share her toolkit at a company forum. She smiled at the paradox. Do less had created more that mattered. She prepared one page and a pace people could trust. No theater, enough accuracy to feed, enough space to breathe. The practice walked on its own feet. The talk day arrived. Aya stepped up without a chase in her chest. She named tools, told one honest story, and ended on time with a bow. Questions were practical. How do I say no kindly? How do I rest without guilt? Aya answered with sentences that fit on sticky notes and inside pockets. Afterward, people said the room felt wider. They used the word relief as if it were a measurable outcome. Aya thought it is. That evening she stood by the window and watched light leave the buildings gently. She whispered thank you to breath, to tools, to teachers. She placed a hand on the heart and another on the belly. May I be safe. May I be kind. May I find ease. She sent the same to anyone still walking in the dark. Night came without argument. The sky continued not needing help. The house breathed. The window stayed open the right width for summer. In the morning, she found the vow where it waits. Feel fully, learn kindly, re-enter gently. The day nodded. The list waited its turn like birds on a rail. On the hill, the bell rang once. The sound made more room than the week had taken. Aya took her seat and trusted the wider circle to keep moving without theater. Find a posture of ease that your body can keep. Let breath arrive without being called. The work is finished for now. Notice 3 facts. Ground holds. Air is kind. You are allowed to go slow. Safety begins when the body believes you. Right effort means honest energy, not too tight, not too loose, enough to keep the music true, tuned by a hair until breath flows with room. Place one hand on the belly and one on the heart. Thank them for carrying you at a human speed. Let gratitude loosen old knots. Review this journey gently. Suffering was met, not denied. Causes were seen. Helpful steps were taken. You learned to walk beside weather. Remember the triangle: feet, breath, helpful task. When storms speak loudly, choose one point and build the other 2. Triangle steady ships. Remember the weightless list. Write everything. Circle 3 that changed today. Square 1 that feeds someone else's ease. Delete 1 that belongs to no one. Practice the 3 stones. Define the heart. Deliver the part that feeds. Decide what can be dropped. Clarity costs less than theater. Use the 4 doors of speech. True, kind, timely, necessary. If a door stays closed, let silence be your wise friend. Pause before push. 5 slow breaths between tasks. Let clarity choose the next helpful step. Mercy for tools is part of the work. Detachment is loyalty to the work, not to your favorite idea. Cut where the work can breathe. Let style serve meaning, not replace it. We Way is effortless action, not inaction. Action that refuses to fight the river. Let current carry honest strokes. Balance is a living conversation. Adjust by a hair until breath moves like a river with banks. Tight strings snap. Loose strings do not sing. If a strict voice appears, give it a useful job. Ask for measurements, not blame. Invite it to guard your rest and report back kindly. Forgive the hours that tried too hard. They were afraid of vanishing. Bow and let them rest. Forgive the hours that did little. They taught the size of this day. When fear knocks, let it ride without keys. It may take notes and even help. It does not steer. Breath and vow hold the wheel. Karma is habit ripening. Plant new grooves with small, repeatable kindness. Habits become roads that feet can walk without tearing. Impermanence is not an enemy. It is the promise that pain can change and that ease must be tended. Keep company with both without clutching. Acceptance is a warm threshold. Step over with what is true. The house you enter is called enough. Arrange its rooms for living, not for applause. Practice valves for compassion, open to serve, close to refill. Let the cup recover so you can keep giving without leaks. Name one repair for the week, a hinge to oil, a boundary to speak, a nap that saves a day. Repairs are how houses remain homes. Let your calendar reflect your values, pillars of sleep, beings of movement, windows of quiet, doors of connection. The structure will hold you back. Close tasks well. Bow to the tools and to the people the work will feed. Closure keeps the mind from dragging the past forward. Stand and feel the soles meet ground. The world moves without your pushing. You can move with it without strain. Count a slow tide. In for 4, soft hold for 1, out for 6. Repeat 3 times. Let the nervous system learn good news by repetition. Imagine praise and blame as winds. Smile at both. Keep the course named by your vow. Wind is weather, not food. Write a brief vow you can keep. I will not trade peace for applause. I will not trade clarity for performance. I will keep human speed. Scan the room for helpers in plain sight. A chair that holds, a cup that warms, a window that teaches sky. Thank them in your way. Thank the body that told the truth early. Thank fear for learning new jobs. Thank breath for staying when the room felt small. Make space for arrivals you did not plan. Leave one circle open for life to name in the morning. Practice trust without theatrics. When you rise, take the next useful step and let it be small. Small steps keep their promises. Small promises build lives that hold. If sleep is your goal, let the voice drift and the breath carry you. If waking is your goal, open the eyes as if light were rising inside a bowl. Carry one sentence into tomorrow. Clarity before action. Right size, right speed, right care. Let this be how you meet storms and sunlight. May you be safe. May you be kind. May you find ease. May your next step be gentle and real. We end here so you can continue well.